right. Well, everybody, thank you again. Welcome back, everyone. And welcome to our, I don't even know how many of these that we've done. Can anybody tell me how many of you attended? We started it right away, what, in April, maybe?
I don't remember.
I don't either. I'll have to look back. Something for me to do next week, so I'll find that out for next week. So thank you for joining us for all these weeks for our Quarantine Opera Club, brought to you by the Florentine Opera and the Rotary Club of Milwaukee. So thank you so much for continuing to join us. I will mute all of you in just a moment, but your fabulous hosts again are John Stump in the Florentine Opera shirt. Maggie's going to be popping on in a little bit. She had another meeting that was running over somewhat, but we'll see her head pop in just a little bit. Runtime is 30 minutes. Today is all about Cinderella, but I'm not going to say, I didn't say it right, John. How do you say it?
Cenerentola.
There we go. Okay. And this one does not involve shoes, is what John said. So, and mice, are there any mice?
Depends on the production, but not technically.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to mute you all. Sit back, enjoy, and let's learn a little bit more about Cinderella. John, take it away.
So as always, I'm going to share a clip, and spoiler, Cinderella lives happily ever after. So we're going to go right to the finale. Sorry, I had to watch her run up that that giant cake one more time. And I will let you know, there are so many amazing leads in this. I was very debating over multiple amazing mezzo-sopranos, and I went with Cecilia Bartoli because her ornamentation is always so spot on, and on top of that, she does such varied. So it's like, Joyce DiDonato is amazing, but I was like, okay, it always is coming top down. So for whatever reason, Cecilia Bartoli is like probably the most amazing coloratura singer that I know, and I recommend you going back and even listen to some of her amazing Baroque and early works where she just like goes to town with firework singing. So we're back in the world of Rossini. And so this was, I think, so I don't know how many book clubs we've done, but I think our second week was Barbara of Seville. So we're back into this very, very fun, for lack of better term, I'm going to say a little bit of bubble gum. So it's like sweet, but has so much flavor to it at the same time. And some fun facts I was learning about Rossini again as I was looking him back up this time around is he only celebrated 19 birthdays in his 76-year life. He was a leap year baby, so I just found that just fascinatingly fun. And then he wrote, his mother was an opera singer, his dad played French horn, And I think his dad was even arrested because of French horn playing in the Resistance and things like that. And just so he came from this musical family, and he was a prolific writer in a very short amount of time. He wrote 38 operas in a 19-year career. All of this is at the beginning of his life, from 18 to 37. So in 1810, he did his first opera, which was La Cambiglia di Matrimonio. And if you don't know that one, that's okay, neither did I. And his last opera was in 1829, I want to say. Did I put the date down right? Which is his William Tell, which is kind of, a lot of people think of as one of his masterpieces. And I have a little William Tell for us in a little bit too. But the majority of these, 30 of his operas were written probably in the first 12 years. So between 1812 and 1822, he wrote 30 of the 38 operas. And so just prolifically writing and pushing things out. And during this time is when he did his Barber of Seville, which if you don't remember the opera and our talk with it, you do remember the Looney Tunes, and one of the greatest things from our childhood. And Cenerentola came a year later. So a little bit other, like after Rossini retired from creating opera, he did go on and still compose. He composed shorter works, and he eventually did his Stabat Mater. He wasn't known for religious works, but that is another one of considered his masterpieces. And he did a lot of songs and short and piano pieces. And he is probably one of the main influencers of Verdi. Between Rossini and Donizetti, we probably wouldn't have as vast and very polished Verdi as we do, because of his tutoring and things like that. I want to talk a little bit about him writing so quickly. I feel like, as I was reading it, is like a lot of his operas, there are a lot of one acts. So not that that's a small feat either, but so that kind of helps add the numbers. But Rossini was not afraid to steal from himself. So for instance, La Cenerentola, its whole overture was taken from an opera he already had written. And he also stole like parts of an aria. And then he'd also had no problem having friends help him write stuff. So and we'll get into Cenerentola, but like somebody else wrote all of the secco recitatives and wrote 3 of the big numbers. And so, but he was still fast, because Barber of Seville, he said he wrote in 12 days. Cenerentola, I think he said he wrote it in 24 days. And so he is churning up music really, 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 really quickly. The other big thing I want to talk about Rossini is, unlike a lot of the composers of this time, like the big ones of the time would have been Mozart just before him, and you have Schubert, you have Beethoven, they do not even compare to the popularity and successfulness in their lifetime as Rossini does. Rossini was not only like churning out music that was kind of critically acclaimed, popularly acclaimed, but he was also making buco dollars. And so that's part of the reason I think he could retire at 37. But if you think of like Mozart died broke, and Beethoven, that we think of like this like starving artist. Rossini was not that, and he wasn't starving, because he had a great love for food too. And like you'll even, I was reading different things. It's like, think of all the different restaurants you have, like something Rossini is always on the menu. And so he loved his food, and usually it's the most decadent food out there. Like the one I was seeing like from Melbourne, Australia, had like foie gras on other more fatty foods. And so he was living his best life. Don't you worry. In addition to this, I'd say the biggest thing that I think, even beyond his operas, and he is very popular like operator still, he's in the top 4 or 5 composers. I think the only operas that are more seen than his is by Verdi, Mozart, and Puccini. Rossini is always number 4, and Barber of Seville is always probably in the top 10, and I think currently ranks number 6 as the most produced opera in all the world, so in all time. But one of the beautiful things that he was very, very known for of the time was his overtures. And his overtures were not only, like, he took this Vietnamese style and form, but it sounded nothing like what they were doing up north. And in addition, like, even in Italy, it was like, if you heard an overture or music, you're like, oh, that's Rossini. And they just knew it. And so this next clip, I'm stealing from William Tell. And originally, we only have a half hour, but originally, and Maggie probably can see it, I had 3 different time sections of the 13-minute William Tell overture to share with you, because in this 13 minutes, he runs the gambit of, like, the type of sounds that you can get out of an orchestra. So I'm going to give you kind of probably what you'll recognize the most out of William Tell. So that's just to give you a taste. And Maggie, I see that you're here, but I don't think I can think of a composer symphonically or operatically at the time using brass the way that Rossini was just unabashedly just like, nope, bring the trumpets. We need more trumpets. But of all the composers of that time, maybe Beethoven by the time he's getting to his 9th symphony.
Well, and there's something very celebratory. Hi, everybody. I apologize for jumping in a little late. I had another meeting. There's something very celebratory of the sound and how he uses his instruments. And we've talked before about the different textures that composers use. And I find when we are looking at Rossini, there's almost like a dancing quality, particularly in the strings, and it never stops. It just keeps spilling over. It's like watching a toddler try to walk, you know, only with way more elegance. And so as we're listening to the William Tell Overture, which is so famous, and as we talk about the singers and what they're accomplishing here in this opera, there's that constant sense of flow and spilling forward and movement and a light, almost, I don't want to say airy because it's got so many textures to it, but it's got that really Italianate, beautiful, full of light movement to it. So for those of you who've been with us for these German explorations where we talk about thick orchestration and how the orchestra is so big that you need a whale of a voice to just carry over it and cut over it. This is not the same style. So what you're looking for here in a lot of the voices in this opera and in Rossini's style are voices that can move and can play and have a lot of color to them and can maintain that color through very fast moving lines with very challenging breathing opportunities, by which I mean there aren't many. So when you're listening to the music and the orchestra, you're going to hear that reflected in the singers' voices as well. And John, I know you started with the clip that I wasn't here for, but hopefully I'm not repeating the same things.
No, it's all good. We did have Non Più Mesto, so they saw a quick fireworks. We have a pattern aria in a few that we'll talk about.
Fabulous.
So a little bit as we're getting into Cinderella itself, Cenerentola. So part of the reason is, and I'm escaping the original show they had planned, but the Rossini was commissioned to do, this is post Barber, this is the year after Barber, and Rossini was commissioned to do a show in Rome, and he had a title put out in place. And the papal censors and everybody said, nope, not going to do that one. And I'm sure Barber didn't help anything because Barber still had this political, a little bit, let's point it out. And so a librettist, Jacopo Ferretti, had actually given a Barber libretto, and Rossini said, nope, don't want yours. I'm going with a different one. And so he kind of put on his big boy pants and came and offered some different ideas. And Rossini, the way the story I was reading goes, is that they were up way at night and he would offer a suggestion, and through yawns, Rossini like, nope, nope. And then eventually came upon like Cinderella, because Cendrillon had just kind of gotten its resurgence in France, and Rossini kind of like, that sounds good. Do you have something written? And I think Ferretti like just said, yeah, I got it, but I'll wait till the morning. And he took a quick nap, and then he started writing libretto for what we know as Cenerentola. But I think he wrote it as quickly. So like Rossini, I told you, wrote Cenerentola in 24 days. The libretto was written in 22, probably simultaneously happening at the same time. And they were trying to find a subject matter that had enough weight but wasn't too dramatic, because they were in carnival season and there was a whole bunch of stuff. But they churned out, and the librettist wasn't sure, but Rossini from the start said, nope, it's going to be one of the most popular operas of all time. And after the premiere, not perfect, but after that, it soon like took off like fireworks. As I was talking with Christina earlier, like we have the shoes in the picture. There are no magic shoes. There's actually very little in this show. They took out all the special effects because they're like, I think it was turned so quickly. They're like, we don't know how we're going to do that. So they replaced the stepmother that we kind of traditionally know with a wicked stepfather, Don Magnifico. There is no fairy godmother, but a philosopher and the tutor of the prince named Alidoro. And so part of this, and rather than glass slippers, Alidoro gives Cenerentola, Angelina, 2 bracelets. And so what happens is she gives one of the bracelets to the prince, who is actually disguised. And we'll get through this plot. This plot is very kind of topsy-turvy, don't you think, Maggie? Like,
Yeah. But again, to me, Rossini always feels like a cartoon. I mean, not William Tell necessarily, but his stories are always convoluted, and I can picture him writing so fast and papers flying everywhere. And he always kind of struck me as, the fat cat of the cartoons. So you've got to picture a little pinch of that in all of these plots. They are meant to be ridiculous.
And so I'm not gonna go through plot by plot point, because everybody knows Cinderella. We have a girl that is kind of downtrodden, being the maid, that becomes the wonderful protagonist that makes it in the end and gets her riches. But what we do have in this is a lot of character shifting. So the prince, well, first off, Alidoro goes to the house as a beggar, and he kind of assesses the situation. And from that situation, as you would guess, the stepsisters are jerks, and Cinderella offers him coffee and chocolate and just like, it'll be okay kind of thing. And so he already assesses that she has a good heart, and that's who he picks for the prince. Well, the prince is coming to invite people to the ball, but the prince comes as his valet, and the valet comes as the prince. And so through most of this opera, through that part of Act 1 through Act 2, we think the valet is the prince, or the stepsisters and the stepfather do, until finally they get pushed to a corner and like, nope, that's the other way around. But they've already shown themselves, and the prince and Cinderella are magically in love. And then, long story short, the prince takes his carriage and it wrecks right in front of the house, and the bracelets are the correct ones together. And he wants nothing to do with the step family, just Cinderella. And she says, nope, you need to forgive them. And then finally she tells the family, like, all I wanted is that you looked at me as a daughter. And so then we had the non funesto, happily ever after. But one of the most beautiful or fun scenes that we have is the valet playing the prince meeting the step family. And so this, to give you a little taste of the patter aria. When we say patter, we talked earlier, the coloratura was really, really fast and lots of notes. Well, this has lots and lots of notes with lots and lots. It's like saying Peter Pepper picked the pecker, pickled peppers, but singing it with a zillion even more verses throughout the whole thing.
And no breathing. So for those of you who are a fan of Gilbert and Sullivan, I am the very model of a modern major general. That is the definition of a patter song. This is where it came from.
And just for good measure, I think I have one other one. The other part I want to share with you is, in addition, I've gotten the luxury to sing a few Puccini, especially the chorus. And the chorus treatment is always kind of this very subtle, almost orchestration behind the fact. But it always kind of drives, and we're kind of helping crescendo the scene. And so I have the end of Act 1 finale. And the other thing I want to say, if you're directing this, listen to Rossini. He's already told you what to do. So you'll see right away in the scene, if you listen to the music, the director is cueing all of the different people sitting right with the music. And so if you listen to Rossini correctly, all of the over-the-top animation that is in the music should tell you how to stage it. So over the course of this is short, it's going to get louder and louder. So if you listen really closely in the background, I'll start it up a little bit, but you hear all the chorus is getting to do, instead of these beautiful lines, it's just like, ba, 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 this is the part of the chord I'm in right now, 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 now. And but what is beautiful, and I'll let you guys find that clip again, but is that it just keeps building until there's just nothing left we can do, and everybody just bats crazy, singing to the back wall as hard as they can. That's kind of Cenerentola. Do we have any questions right now?
I think Barbara's got one.
Oh, you're still muted.
Unmute.
There we go.
Okay. In all the excerpts that you played, it seemed that the speed was even faster than you would normally hear it. Is that an illusion, or was that the way it is?
That's Rossini. I know. Yeah, and it's funny. We when we were talking about Barber, and like prepping for it, because it was first time, Maggie and I were talking about, we would have like these writings like allegro means this and this means this, but like now we have like specific time frame that tells us meter. But some of the pieces, like andante means walking speed, but think about it. Rossini was 25. What is a 25-year-old's walking speed versus if you're a composer in your 60s? And so that speed is just kind of built in. And so we're still not to that specific. So everything is just kind of amped up, especially tempo-wise. Any other questions?
I see Mary's
Mary.
hand.
There you go, Mary.
Just have a funny anecdote. Years ago, the Florentine Opera Company did Cenerentola at the Pabst Theater. And
Beautiful.
our friend Eugenie Olson brought her fourth graders. She was teaching in the Kewaskum Public Schools. And she was one of the presidents of the Florentine Opera Club. She brought the fourth graders from Kewaskum, and one of them wrote a review of the opera. It was at the Pabst. And the little fourth grader said, "We went to the Pabst Theater. We sat way up high. Have you ever sat in the balcony?" We were going to fall. And Cinderella was not like the Disney character. She was brown-haired and chubby. That was the review.
When we did Cinderella school show this year, and we put it together with lots of different operatic Cinderellas because it's a very popular story in opera. And one of the things that Jelana, the director, and I decided on was to keep it pretty close to the Disney Cinderella, exactly for that reason. Is we thought, well, if we use Rossini's, not fairy godmother, but philosopher or wicked stepfather, we're not entirely sure the kids are going to stay with us. I could see it breaking out. So I'm not surprised by that.
But I loved it. She was not the Disney character. She was brown-haired and
Right? They did not do it right.
Well, I had an aha moment with that last song too, because that last song was used in our school show this year. So for me to put two and two together, it's like, oh my gosh, I recognize that song. That's so exciting. So a little plug, if anyone hasn't had the opportunity to see this darling digital recording of our school show of Cinderella, it's on our website and it is for young and old alike. And you'll hear that song and they do it just that fast. They're incredible.
We've got them moving scenery and changing costumes.
And as I was telling, Cinderella, the fairy tale is probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest fairy tale in existence. Like the fairy tale itself goes back to, I think the first iteration is sometime BC in Greece. And but then it's retold in different ways all over the world. I feel like Japanese or Chinese version is where we got like the slipper part that infiltrated into other parts of it. And so it's kind of really, but the story of somebody that is having bad luck but is a good person overcoming things and succeeding is universal around the world, and everybody has clamored onto this storyline.
And while they've taken away some of the magic, I'm also glad they've taken away some of the gore, because some of the older versions are really, those stepsisters get their comeuppance. So let's just be grateful that's not on stage. Barbara?
Originally, I think the glass slipper was a slipper made out of fur. And the word for fur and glass sounds the same. Verre is the word, soulier de verre. So depending on how you spell it, it could be fur or glass. And I think the glass sort of won out over time.
Well,
But you
It still does. It still does because it's PETA appliant. But
yeah, you could think that fur predated glass, perhaps.
definitely.
any other questions about Rossini or? It's a quiet bunch this Wednesday.
What do we have next week, John?
Right now, I'm working on Don Carlo, Verdi's Don Carlo. And so I think I'm going to stay on the Italian side. Anything French side, I'll let
That's okay. This is one of those operas, and there are a couple where they're done equally in different languages. So we really will explore it in both traditions and talk about how it can be written that way and why. And it's a beautiful piece. So I'm excited that we can bring this all to you, and it will be a pretty strong counterpoint to both the heavy Germanic repertoire we've been looking at and our Rossini palette cleanser. So you'll all be able to join us.
Well, good. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us this week. And bring a friend next time. If you've got somebody who's interested, just let them know. I'm happy to send them a link, or you can forward the link to them. So the more the merrier. We love doing this each week for you. It truly is a joy for us. So thank you again. Thank you, John. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Rotary Club. Let's keep this going. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Have a great week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I